Welcome back to the PC Per Podcast. It's episode 649. It's October 20 as we record this. 2021. I'm Sebastian Peak.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Brett Vance Broomberg.
And you can subscribe to find out when we go live by signing up for our email list. Yes, in 2021, we still offer a text email notification system because we're old school. And
we're unique.
Dozens of people enjoy that service. Yes, we are unique. And you can go to patreon.com/PCPer. Become a patron. Do we have a this week on Patreon update, Brett?
Quick update, just letting everybody know that there is still not a mass exodus from our Patreon.
You could be part of that lack of a mass exodus.
Yes, please continue that complete
and we'll
total
name
lack
drop
of
you
mass
on
exodus.
The show.
Sometimes fairly hard name drop, but yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. One of the things that...
Thank you very much, folks.
Yes,
but anyway,
thank you.
Please
and one of the things that obviously a lot of you love, Josh talking about food. And we're going to go to Josh in Laramie, Wyoming now.
So I actually had a burger today, and I'm kind of shocked that they had a different burger from last week, because last week seemed so over the top that they'd have to keep it for another week to be able to sell everything, but that apparently was not the case. Because today, I had the Big Iron burger. I think Big Iron was a song by Marty Robbins. And this is in honor of said Mr. Robbins. Big Iron Burgers is comprised of Texas Jack, breaded jalapenos, bacon, and pepper jack. And plus there's a spicy barbecue sauce that they didn't list on their menu, but it was definitely in there. So 2 different types of cheese, breaded jalapenos, bacon. It all turned out to be quite tasty. And the pictures don't exactly do it justice. But there was a sad thing about that, because they no longer hand-cut their fries. And I think I talked about it last week, but just can't get enough food prep help to do it. The owner's down in the basement doing food prep all day. And finally got to the point where he just had to get pre-done frozen French fries. And happily, they're tasty, too. So, not losing out on much.
Oh, good.
And they always come out perfect, so we're good.
Josh, the Big Iron name reminds me of an IBM mainframe, really.
Yeah. What was the AIX?
SSD.
What was the operating system on those things? I think it was AIX.
Yeah,
I think it was AIX was one of them. I think
it was the OS that just never crashed, but configuring it
was VMS or their VM or whatever other.
I don't know. Anyway,
old,
very old,
yeah,
old.
But it's not
one of the
old
first
iron.
SSDs was installed in a Cray, though.
Yeah.
Oh,
that was kind of interesting.
Did not know.
You saw that on Twitter, Jeremy? Oh yeah.
Because you posted it for our
group chat.
1986?
Yeah. Look at the I/O channel.
Yeah, it's that black bar that connects the semicircle.
Yes.
There's your infinity fabric.
Yeah.
I liked it when a computer came with its own seating arrangement.
Oh, that is cool. It looks like something out of a mall in the 80s. What is this person doing here?
They're
crying.
Crying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crying.
There's
oil for that man.
company.
I recognize that pose.
We owe how much in electricity costs this month?
But it's so much faster than a hard drive.
Yeah.
I told you not to kick that wire.
So this is what an SSD board looked like in 1986.
And that was 1 meg of cache. So to get to 1 gigabyte, think of how many of those they had to have installed.
Well, it looks like it stood
And
about 10
mounted.
feet tall.
What's that?
I said it looks like it stood about 10 feet tall.
Yeah, those things were huge. I've sat by one, and they had it kind of cut out with plexiglass. This was in 1991. And yeah, it's just board after board after board stacked in those things. And it's just yeah, they must have pulled so much power and they required so much cooling.
Oh, gosh.
It wasn't even funny. But they were neat products for the time. Cray did some really cool stuff. And now,
Yeah.
all the processing power and storage, far more
And more.
storage. Yeah,
Yeah.
in a phone. How time flies.
Speaking of those wily phone makers,
Yeah, remember when Apple just bought a chip company and slowly started working towards having their own iPhone?
When am I going to get my $18 chamois, though?
PA Semi.
PA
Okay.
Semi.
yeah.
That was the company they bought. All right. So anyway,
Yes.
fast forward to 2021, Apple has made another announcement. Of course, the M1 processor was their first foray into their own desktop chip, much to Intel's chagrin. Now there is the M1 Pro and M1 Max. There had been rumors about an M1 X. Apparently, this is X. This is Pro and Max. And the difference between the two is going to be basically GPU. But this was, I think was this yesterday? Time flies. This was 2 days ago.
Just a couple days ago.
They claim, now the CPU in these two are actually the same. They claim it is about 70% faster CPU core performance than the original M1. But the M1 Pro, they say, has 2x the GPU power, and you get to 4x the GPU with the Max. And here's a look at the chip. This is the Pro. And you'll see, of course, the big differences in memory because you get up to the Max, and now you have doubled that. And you can get up to 64 gigabytes of unified memory with up to 200. Let's see, the Pro has up to 200 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth. That's pretty good. I mean, it's the graphics card we looked at last week, the 6600 non-XT, was about 224, 225. And then you move up to 400 gigabytes per second, of course, because you have more memory channels with the M1 Max. 64 gigabytes of memory with up to 400 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth. Now, obviously, this is unified memory. It can be used for the CPU or GPU. But just imagine what it would cost to buy a GPU with 64 gigabytes of VRAM. And if you're doing something that is almost entirely GPU compute, having that much VRAM seems like a really big deal to me. And this is actually available in a MacBook Pro.
In a laptop, even. Yeah.
That's-
Hard to believe.
Has Apple become like a viable workstation contender all of a sudden?
Yeah, for certain
Possibly.
use cases, it seems.
I mean, the top end one seems like it'd be doing fine for video type work because you got all that memory to mess with. The mid range probably more, photo work type centric. Making a large GPU on a CPU with really close memory is something we've seen for a couple of generations now from AMD. But I'm not trying to downplay what Apple has done here, but this is a pretty impressive bit of packaging that they've done with this chip, and the I/O is insane. I mean, up to 400 gigabyte per second? That's nuts. That's 3060, 3070, RTX type speeds with wide memory buses and fast GDDR6. So this is kind of a fascinating piece of technology that Apple has put out in a mobile product. I mean, I know. That's bizarre, but I'll take it because we've had rumors of the AMD APUs for mobile and the server stuff that would have HBM memory attached to it, or some kind of local memory that would really up its performance, and we've just never seen that come to fruition. They've enlarged the caches on there. I can't remember what the hell they label it, game cache. But anyway, so they've gone that route rather than do more interesting interconnects, but as we're moving forward and how they've done their I/O for their CPUs, They're certainly going for a little bit more flexibility, and I'll be curious to see what they do, because a couple of months we're going to see their 3D V cache, which is kind of mind-boggling when you think of what they have to do to be able to actually manufacture that. But I mean, they've done, they've worked up to that point. But I'm sorry that I'm going away from Apple and what they've done. But yeah, that was a stream of thought. But no, it's interconnects and packaging. All those things are going to become very, very important as they try to extract as much performance as possible out of all these chips, whether it be AMD, Intel, or in this case, Apple, with a really interesting packaging technology. And the performance is, in theory, looks good. And I'm going to be very interested to see, what real world type results we get with this kind of combination. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, speaking of theoretical
They have
performance,
sorry, go ahead.
Brett, you had linked to this. Paul Lilly over at Hot Hardware had written about some benchmarks of the new, is this the Pro or Mac? No, the M1 Max.
No.
And
this is hot
using GFX Bench, so it's more of a mobile focus.
This is like a hot take, so this isn't necessarily, for
no,
real
this is
yet.
one. If anybody's going to talk about gaming performance, they're going to want like specific newer titles, real world situations. But just looking at GFX Bench, which you can run on pretty much anything, and doing off-screen 1080p testing, they did some other stuff, some DirectX testing. It looks like this is somewhere in like the 2080 performance class, but I don't think that's really what they would be going for. And plus, there's really nothing. How many games run natively on M1?
Are you sure they said 2080? I thought they said it was just shy of actually a 3080 and just over a 3070 mobile. These are mobile, and the low power version of the 3080 mobile. So
okay, I guess what I had previously read was we're talking desktop 2080.
Oh,
so
sure.
Mobile,
yeah, that makes sense.
Mobile 3070, 3080, but...
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily you maybe want to take it to the mobile for a comparison's sake, considering that they are trying to do a mobile chip. And Josh, you were talking about what they did on their silicon. I just wanted to also mention they have a bunch of other fixed function silicon on there as well, especially for doing video decoding and encoding and stuff like that.
Oh, nice.
It has ProRes encode decode in hardware.
Yeah.
So if you happen to use ProRes for your, high resolution video needs, then there's hardware built in for that. I think that was a separate piece of, like a separate expansion card for the Mac Pro currently.
You're right. It was called, I don't remember what it was called. It had a kind of a funny Apple-like name to it anyway, but...
Magic?
I don't know. It's like Super Duper
Magic
card or something.
slot.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. They're also doing
super
H264.
slot.
Yeah. They're doing H264, H265 in hardware as well. Very similar to what a lot of GPUs can do. So it should be great for people who do a lot of, high performance video on the go and don't need to retreat to the editing suite anymore, right?
I'm just curious as to what the implication of M1 Max is to a future iMac. I know there's a rumor that early 2022 there's going to be a new iMac with this, or a future Mac Pro. Because if this scales and they can release something with, say, a 64-core GPU or 20 CPU cores,
right,
that could be very interesting. But once again, you have to be on their architecture. You have to be M1 optimized.
They've opened the power spigot on this one versus the previous M1. That was a very, very low power chip. This is, if you add it all up and you loaded everything up, you're into some major wattage at that point. I remember they had a chart there that actually showed it. It's actually respectable, meaning that it's not that uncomparable to Intel's or AMD's mobile chips, more AMD's really, from a power consumption at full load. So to your point, once they get a larger chassis around this, I think their thermal envelope gets even more impressive because they generally don't give off a lot of heat for their performance. They pride themselves on their performance per watt.
Yeah,
and they're doing really well at it.
We can't talk about
In the
M1
name
Pro and
of
Max
Notch.
without talking about the new machines that have these processors in them. And of course, I'm talking about the MacBook Pro because that's all I've announced so far. Brett, do you have some observations about this?
You know, it's easy to poke fun at the fact that they have notched their laptop. And you know what? My first reaction was to point and laugh. But on second thought, I looked at it and I went, why did they do this? And who in their right mind would think that they could get away with this? And then I looked at what it was that they had done.
Brett, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm looking at their
So go
marketing
ahead.
images here and I don't see a notch because they just have a black bar at the top of the screen so you can't see it.
You're right about that. And
Oh,
I
wait,
think
here it is. You can see it at this
oftentimes-
angle.
Oftentimes, I think a lot of applications won't show it because their full screen implementation or their full size window will be below the notch. They've done two things here with regards to alleviating the fact they have notched their laptop. And I almost can't stop laughing when I say it. But the serious side of it says two things. One, that their screens have almost always traditionally been 16 by 10, right? The Mac has sort of been a mainstay in the 16 by 10 keeper of the taller aspect ratio. If you look at the pixel density and the pixel resolutions of these laptops, they're actually slightly larger than 16 by 10, meaning that they have actually more height than their previous 16 by 10 laptops.
Yes,
so they can
I
actually.
figured that's what you meant by that.
Yes. So that what I'm saying is that they can actually keep the same ratio as all of their other laptops and sort of give up that top. That's particularly.
So right, if you just letterbox it a
something.
little bit, then you have the same
Little
aspect
bit.
ratio as last year's. But
Exactly.
if
right.
you have an application that can throw some info up there to the left and right of the notch, just like with the iPhone,
and not
then
like
you have
Windows.
extra screen real estate.
So Windows sort of carries the control panel or the control bar with all of its applications and sort of homes that control bar with each launched application. But the Mac operating system has the control panel, or I'm sorry, the control bar or the title bar for all of the applications at
menu
the top
bar.
of the screen. The menu bar, exactly, is at the top of the screen constantly. And they've made the notch so that the menu bar is sort of within that notch vertical space. Basically, you're not going to miss it anyway. I know that's sort of a poor excuse, but I kind of tried to put my head where, what were they thinking? And
You
these
were
were the things I
justifying
came
it.
up with.
You were like, how can I justify
I
this
don't
for
want to
Apple?
go as far as
How can I
justifying
make
it
excuses?
Yeah, how can I
because it's
praise
easy for me to
this
go,
idiotic
what were they
decision?
thinking? All right, I was waiting for that.
It's genius.
Shoot
I
me.
never thought
Shoot me full of
that
arrows.
cutting part of a display out, which by the way is problematic. Look at
is.
the display replacement program that's been in place for a long time with the original iPhone 10. Mine, by the
true.
way, was replaced twice under warranty. And once
hurtful.
off warranty because of the replacement program.
They did actually bulk up the entire machine chassis. It's
Well,
not
right,
as
because they
thin
put
as the
I/O
previous
on it
generation.
again.
Oh, thank God.
Because here we are. I have a 2015
Yeah, with an
MacBook Pro.
HDMI 2.0 port
Yeah.
from the looks of it.
Good point. Yeah, I got to wonder
Yeah,
about
but
that one.
we don't know the TDP of that chip yet.
A big.
It's a big chip.
Yeah,
It's on
yeah.
a new 5 nanometer process.
They may have needed the girth to give it a little bit more
A little
gravitas.
cooling.
This looks like
Especially
an old
with the-
PowerBook G4 almost with the lines here.
I've heard comparisons to the old polycarbonate
Really?
with the whole, the way that shape is. But yeah, go on.
SDXC slot, Thunderbolt 4 and HDMI 2.0 on one side. MagSafe 3 on the other side. MagSafe is back. Thunderbolt
Oh, thank
4,
God.
2 more, and a headphone jack. So this is pretty much a laptop. This is actually something you can use without a bunch of dongles to forget and
Oh yeah.
cords and nonsense. It's actually a legitimate laptop again. They haven't made a real laptop since 2015 until now. So now they have it again. Because 2015 was the last year of, real I/O on a laptop for them.
How'd
missed
that
the MagSafe
touch
the
bar
most,
work
I
out
think.
for him?
Yeah, they dropped that.
Touch
too.
bar. Oh my gosh, yeah, that's the other thing is they finally put full size. This is the first time on a laptop that they've ever put full size function key row on a laptop. They've always been like sort of half height keys, like the arrow keys.
Well,
on the bottom right there.
Steve didn't like function keys. He thought they were inelegant.
Well, of course he did.
Okay.
So, I mean, to distill what they did down is like they finally came to their senses and backtracked on most of the things that people were complaining loud.
Well, they did the keyboard first.
About.
They brought back
the butterfly versus
the scissor mechanism, and then now they're like, you know what? I think professionals would live with a few extra millimeters if it got them, a usable machine again. Plus,
I think everybody screamed that. Yeah.
Plus, they have they probably just did this as an afterthought to make people happy when they realized, oh no, we cannot fit this new chip in our existing slim chassis.
No, the two realities combined.
Yeah. Like, dang it, it wasn't just Intel. It's just anytime you have a more power-hungry chip, it's hard to
And they
make it
ditched the touch bar because
it sucked. SK Hynix, in their newsroom today, they have announced development of HBM3. So they will be the first in the industry to successfully develop the High Bandwidth Memory 3, the world's best performing DRAM, according to their press release here. And this is the fourth generation of HBM, of course, because we had HBM2 and HBM2E. And now we're going to have HBM3.
The fourth gen is HBM3. Okay.
Yes.
This is up to 819 gigabytes per second. 78% increase compared to HBM2E. Can you imagine putting 4 channels of this together?
Wait a minute. I thought we were just talking about terabyte per second bandwidth on previous on Radeon 7.
That was with 4 HBM2 memory channels.
Right. They were able to do that simultaneously. Yeah, okay.
Right. So,
yeah.
This is big. And 2 capacity types, 24 and 16 gigabytes. So just 2 channels of this, you could have up to 32 gigabytes, and that would be like 1.6 terabytes per second of bandwidth. Are any current generation AMD workstation cards still based on Vega architecture? I think for the Apple ecosystem they are, right? Because they have the... Or no, are those RDNA 2?
I don't know, actually.
I think they're RDNA because there's recently, after those Mac Pros came out, their OS started to support RDNA 2. So I believe so.
Yeah. I wonder if this will end up just being one of those big NVIDIA, like, graphics accelerator workstation things. And they'll never make it to a consumer product. But it's interesting.
Not at all.
Okay.
Hate it.
Well,
okay.
It's time for Jeremy to depress us all with more, bugs and problems, security issues.
Yeah, it
what
blows
is
up
this
on
time?
Sunday, doesn't
What's
it?
the global displacement system story that you wrote?
I mean, it sounds like a time traveling device, but
Well, technically, yes. It will be traveling back in time
okay.
by about a decade on Sunday because of a bug that version got because they were dealing with a forthcoming leap second and a little bit of math got screwed up. But this has happened before. This has actually happened before twice, where GPSD, which is a little program that helps applications talk to GPS satellites. And so everything from, little IoT crap to various things like Kismet and Roadmap, which are like open source alternatives to Google Maps, straight through to like driverless cars, marine navigation buoys, apparently some military IFF and rockets. The thing is that when they first started putting up GPS satellites, they figure, 10 bits unsigned is just fine. And it keeps track by week. So every week it increments from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3, which unfortunately means that every 1,024 weeks, it rolls over to 0. And suddenly a lot of the people that are, doing time coordinates based off of NPD and then trying to go to this, it doesn't match anymore. All of a sudden, stuff just doesn't work quite right. Your location data starts getting corrupted and stuff. And so it turns out that there is literally one retired engineer out in Nebraska, Omaha specifically, that literally is the only one keeping this thing alive. And so somebody that's got a lot of access to various testing and doing GPS stuff actually found this bug and pointed it out to him. And sure enough, good old Gary Miller, the one and only, and who is literally featured in an XKD comic, although I don't think Randall Munro actually knew this was completely as accurate as it was, is now put out a patch. So if you're running anything that's using GPS that hasn't, you don't sort of check up to make sure that, it's still talking to NTP properly and that it knows where the hell it is, you might want to patch it. If you're using Ubuntu or a couple of the other distros, it's already been rolled in because a lot of the kit, of course, is going to be running that. But again, if you didn't update it, it's not going to be updated. So if you don't update it, you got a 100% chance stuff is going to go wrong. Whereas if you do update it, you're fine.
Sebastian, would you click through to that XKCD comic, please, just so we can have a visual indication?
Oh, come on!
Exactly.
If you don't know what this is, you don't deal with computer programming.
No, people deal with this. People deal with this, but the picture is worth all the words. A project some random person in Nebraska has been thanklessly maintaining since 2003. For that guy, probably older.
Actually, it was
all modern digital infrastructure.
All modern digital infrastructure.
What's going to happen when he stops
spindly
doing
little?
that?
Yeah, he doesn't want to do it anymore.
Well, I mean, he's retired. He's probably getting up there, and there's not too many people that are willing to do it for free.
They don't live forever.
But yeah, and again, if you have patched, it's Saturday, November 20th, 2038, that you will once again have to roll everything and deal with it back, because it's not like we can go up to the satellites and move them onto a more reasonable type of
I'm sure everybody's patched the random IoT firmware that needs this, so there probably won't be a problem. It's fine.
I'm just hoping the American military has patched whichever rockets it are that apparently use this for positioning.
Well, all the rockets will suddenly be in the past, so it's fine, right? That's wrong.
All right. How about something less depressing? Like how if you run out of ink with certain all-in-one printer, scanner, copier things, you're not allowed to use the scanner. And I know this is about a Canon product, but I think Brother was guilty of this too, because my mom had one of these years ago.
Yes.
She used to call me for support on it. And when she was low on ink, she couldn't do anything. But here we go.
No, you can't scan, you can't fax, you can't do shite.
Right. Until you use, and please be sure to use genuine Canon.
Not refills. I like your tag of
HP is in court right now for this.
I like your tag of dirty pool on this one, by the way.
There's a whole slew of articles with that keyword.
Oh, really?
Oh.
And all of them are
dirty pool. 24 of these you've written. Interesting.
Indeed.
Not everything deserves it, but when they do, let me tell you.
A new way to make you regret buying a printer.
Because and as if you need any. Because they started out going on about HP.
If they weren't scummy enough.
For HP has had all sorts of this sort of stuff in the past and is currently in court for the whole thing where they started scanning the firmware of the ink that you'd installed in the HP printer and disabling if it wasn't genuine HP. And apparently, I didn't realize this, but the shareholders are now suing some of the owners of HP for artificially trying to drive sales. I have no idea if these two are related or not. So the point was that Canon should bloody well know better than to do something this ridiculously blatant. So yeah, there's a class action lawsuit down in the States with over 100 members and 20 different models of Canon, with the usual upper limit of $5 million in damages for this type of class action suit, because literally there are a bunch of them that the second that it starts to detect low ink levels will no longer scan. It will no longer fax. It will no longer do anything but probably take you directly to the Canon website to order more ink. It's ridiculous. You should figure this bloody stuff out. Just don't do it.
Let's pause here for a word from our podcast sponsor this week.
Hey, there's some big news from my new favorite home security company. SimpliSafe is extending their protection to the outside of your home and has just launched their new wireless outdoor security camera. Named by U.S. News and World Report as the best home security system of 2021, SimpliSafe now just got even better. Their brand new outdoor security camera is engineered with the features you want and need to help keep you and your family informed and safe. The camera's got a nice field of view at 140 degrees, making it easier to keep watch over your outdoor spaces. The 1080p HD resolution is backed up with an 8x zoom, making it possible to more clearly see things like faces or vehicle details like license plates. Hey, it's also got a built-in spotlight with color night vision, making it easy to see what's going on all day and night. It's simple to set up with an easy-to-remove rechargeable battery, making it possible to deploy anywhere on your property. The new camera also integrates with your SimpliSafe home security system, of course, so now every door, window, and room are protected, and now your property can be too. To learn more about the exciting new SimpliSafe wireless outdoor security camera, visit simplisafe.com/PCPer. What's more, SimpliSafe is celebrating this new camera by offering 20% off your entire new system and your first month of monitoring service free when you enroll in interactive monitoring. Again, that's simplisafe.com/PCPer. Take a look today.
We're back, and we're going to talk very briefly about a few more topics, including some games that are on their way with DXR, ray tracing, DLSS. NVIDIA keeps on adding to this list, don't they? This is from Rock Paper Shotgun. So if it launches on console, it's DXR, not RTX. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like there's special RTX versions. And the Unreal Engine, which is also a lot of them are coming out on, is DXR. But if it's not that, or if it's DLSS only, chances are pretty good that it's sort of like Atomic Heart, and you're going to need an RTX card that you can't buy, which is awesome. I was just impressed that the list of games has gone from dozen or two to dozens.
Yeah.
There are quite a few that are already out, and more than a few that are coming up. Some of which are interesting, some of which, we'll see.
I think it's kind of interesting to read between the lines and look at the last couple of NVIDIA announcements when they're talking about RTX games, and it's really just all about DLSS, because it's baked into DirectX 12.
And DLAI, they're coming out with a new one.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
But
and that apparently that's for the people who can still drive a 4K monitor, and it's just going to make it prettier. It's not going to make it perform any better. We'll see how that works out.
Next topic, ultra-wide 1440p, 144 hertz. Okay, sounds normal. But under $400 for said features. And I have to appreciate the Cowboy Bebop wallpaper here. Not the new series, the original anime. So what is
Which
this?
also should be available. I might watch that.
Yes.
It's a Viotech. So right off the bat,
The Sony Viotech?
But yeah.
What's that model name, Jeremy?
The GNV34 of DBE2.
Oh, the DBE2. Okay, yeah. I thought
Yes.
it was DBE1. Okay.
No, it's a VA panel, which is rather nice.
Oh, yeah.
And
I happen to have the Lenovo and the AOC version, essentially, of this monitor, and I bought them long enough ago that they were actually priced under $400. I was a little bit surprised to see they'd all gone up.
But not this one.
the ultra-wide right now it'll chew through your budget.
Yeah, this turns out to be on target, Jeremy.
So
It comes and goes. Like when I posted it was on Amazon. Right now it's off. Might be on Newegg, but it's worth keeping an eye out for because it hits all of the buttons except for one. That stand is fixed. So you can tilt and rotate, but it does not go up and down. So that is a little bit of a pain, and it means that even though it is VESA 75, you're going to have to include the price of an arm in there if it really does drive you nuts. Then again, for this sort of price, and Newegg, it's right at $400 right now. It was on sale before, but still, if you want, actual widescreen, if you want to sit there and watch a movie without any black bars, this is not a bad way to go.
with that curvature radius, that's 1500R.
Yeah,
It's fairly curved, right?
It's
No, that's
pretty
the less
flat.
curved one.
Yeah,
Remember, it's 34 inches
1000R
yeah.
is pretty curved. 1500 is a little curve, and 1800R is a pretty not terribly noticeable curve
Oh, okay.
because it's the radius.
Gotcha.
So the larger the radius, the less extreme the curve is.
And VA, typically the only real complaint about that, because VA has really nice contrast ratio, good blacks, but
Correct.
not great off-axis at all. But when it's curved, that kind of takes care of that problem.
Off-axis isn't bad. It's TN is obviously the off-axis king of crappy-looking monitors.
Yes.
But VA has pretty good. Off-axis is not bad. It doesn't have the saturation, I think, that IPS does. So it doesn't look as colorful. It is a little bit more drab.
It's always a
the
trade-off,
gamut,
isn't it?
It's the gamut.
Yeah.
It's a little bit narrower. So
You have to go all the way to OLED to get the color
Everything you
saturation,
want.
the
Yep.
viewing angles, and the contrast.
now,
But
I
then you
like
run
my
into
two
other
versions
issues.
of this monitor. They game well. I don't have any trouble seeing stuff due to the curvature. The curvature doesn't bother me unless I've used a flat panel, and then it takes a few minutes to get adjusted to the curvature of things, or vice versa. But that's not unusual. They're really good panels, and I think the only difference between the manufacturers on these is some of the electronics and the stand, as you're pointing out. But the panels are pretty solid up to they're the third generation widescreen up to 144 hertz refresh. The first ones were up to like 70. The second ones were 100. These are the 144s. So they're probably about ready to be retired, and the next generation is going to come out. So it's about the third generation of this from it's probably
Which is probably why the price is down a little bit.
LG. Yeah.
Somebody was complaining the other day. It may have been JZ 2 cents. Well, yeah, but he was going off that monitors are just so boring anymore, and I just scratched my head and thought, in between 2005 and 2015, monitors were extremely boring. After that, they finally became interesting again, and now we've got sub $300, like with my wife's 30-inch behind me. That's a 200 hertz IPS monitor that is absolutely gorgeous to look at. And you can get those for just, it's so amazing what you can get for just dirt cheap. And all of them pretty much have, FreeSync included in there. Some of the higher end stuff, obviously, with the G-Sync. But yeah, I think that it just continues to build after being so stagnant for so long. It's like 24-inch LCD 60 hertz from 2005 to 2015. That was the standard. Didn't do a whole lot of changing. Panels became slightly better in terms of color, and you had higher end. But now it's really interesting. You get FreeSync, you get higher refresh rates, you get a variety of panels, you get curvature. We're living in nirvana when it comes to monitors as compared to back then.
So you're saying it was a bad take from Jay?
It was a very bad take.
Yeah, of all things, like monitors being boring. Samsung's all their latest tech, the QLED stuff, that's all, and they have monitors for that. You have increasing presence of OLED stuff. You've got, the curved panel thing is obviously not brand new, but there's so much stuff out there. High refresh rate.
Wides from Samsung.
Yeah,
those
the
are
49-inch
amazing.
puppies.
Resolutions keep going
Amazing.
up. We're up to,
Yes,
4K
yes.
has become commonplace now, and the next frontier is 8K. It's not boring.
I think it's fantastic where we're at.
FPS review. Took a look at overclocking the non-XT6600, and I will skip straight to some results that they got here. If you look at Far
Just
Cry,
go to the overclocking. Nobody cares about anything else.
yeah, let's just look at overclocked results.
Yeah.
Far Cry
Well, because
6,
the interesting bit was that they just used the native AMD software. They didn't use Afterburner. They didn't do anything. They just said, boom, we're going to use the new AMD drivers, and we're going to try overclocking that way.
which is
which
not a bad
most
way to
people-
go. Because honestly,
most people didn't.
I've tried doing it both ways, and Radeon software for overclocking is pretty good. You have total control over your voltage and your frequencies. You can tweak the memory and play with the cooling, and it's all pretty
The hard
intuitive,
limits
actually.
were frustrating for them, though.
Power limits.
No, well, the power of plus 20 wasn't bad at all. But the memory slider topped out at 1.9 gigahertz.
Okay,
and they were
yeah.
still 100% stable at that point.
So they
But
wanted to
there's
go
no
farther.
going faster.
Okay.
And then same with the GPU, only 2.9, and then you're at a hard limit. And so they cranked them both up to the max, Or like it's not artifacting. It's perfectly happy. It can obviously go further, but
I don't think that's something that you will get past just by using Afterburner, though. I thought the
well, no, and I
limits
think
were there.
Afterburner's power limits are lower,
Oh, okay.
if I recall correctly.
Odd. Maybe that'll be updated because I know that there's different profiles in Afterburner. You can go reference design, MSI design, hybrid, like of both.
Yeah.
So it doesn't always work perfectly. I tend to use EVGA, the precision application when I'm overclocking NVIDIA cards, but it's been a while since I've done overclocking in a review. But FPS review, really quick, Far Cry 6, 1080p, Ultra, they leapfrogged the 3060, basically. So they went from 92 FPS to 99, which was good for a 1 FPS lead over the 3060 Black Gaming that they tested. And it's not a ton, but I mean, here we have Far Cry 6. If you move up to DXR enabled, that got them an extra 4 FPS. It was still behind the 3060. But
No, there's a reason.
yeah. Metro enhanced. Apparently the images are not loading. What is that?
Well, the ads are more important.
Yeah. So here's the Cyberpunk, everybody's favorite title. Good for about a 2.5 FPS increase by overclocking. There's not a whole lot of headroom with GPUs anymore.
No.
Nope.
No.
We've talked
It's
about
kind of useless.
yeah.
Yeah,
But it was
well, you
sort of
make your-
surprising how much they got out of it just by pushing the driver power limits. Just kind of one tweak, and that's all it took.
Yeah.
There's a lot of headroom with that card as far as power delivery goes because it has an 8-pin and only has 132 watt TGP. So, I mean, you can just off of PCIe power alone, you could push it way, way higher. So,
I thought that was only 75 watts.
Yeah, 75 from the slot and 75 from a 6-pin.
Right.
and they have an 8-pin, which is good for 150,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, so it's 225 in theory.
I'd say just put 225 into it to see what happens. Although I thought a lot of, like, the first thing I'm ever told about AMD is you go to undervolt. I'm like, what does
I've
that
heard
even
that.
mean? And of course I know what it means because in Radeon software you can do that. You can lower the voltage, but there's actually a preset. When you go into the performance tab, you can choose to like automatically have it scan your GPU and just determine the best undervolted, like stable undervolt number for you. So it seems
Anyway.
counterintuitive, but it is the case apparently. All right, finally tonight, Lantenna. Sniffing packets out of your LAN cables on the cheap. Now here's something that we haven't seen in a while. The good
What,
old
depressing
set
news?
top rabbit ears.
Oh, come on, you have to.
Ooh.
Nice picture, Jeremy.
And this one's got that like extra ring. I don't know if was that for UHF or VHF.
I thought that was for FM.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was
for FM.
radio.
I like these I miss my boombox with a telescoping antenna like this. Those were the days.
Yeah, but I don't miss
Rabbit
holding
ears.
those antenna for my dad because if I let go, the picture went fuzzy
Yes,
again.
Yes. That was a fact. Like when I wanted to watch Star Trek and it was like all fuzzy, you could go up to it and just like it wasn't just that you were holding it, it's the position of your body, where your left
yeah.
arm was.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
You made a good reflector.
Yep.
So what is it? A $1 antenna, and we can sniff out. Hold on. We
And
can sniff
about a
out
$25 software-defined
Yeah,
radio.
Yeah, this is wired Cat 6 cabling. Maybe not very good cable, but that's Jeremy. Tell
How
us.
close
about
is this cable? Did they take the shielding off of it?
No. No, they did not.
That's the scary part.
And they were within 4 meters, but that might have been the $1 antenna they picked up. If they went for
Okay.
a proper directional one, they could probably get significantly better considering how far you can sniff Bluetooth from. Now, this is... The good news is that this is not new. We have known about leaky cables for a very long time now, and it was actually a concern during World War II. that some of the RF was escaping from certain wiring. And there's been a couple of other attacks doing it. But this one is scary because just about anyone can set it up. Like, software-defined radio is a little bit to wrap your head around, and then once you've got it, you've got it. Pointing an antenna at something is not. Now, their proof of concept, they were reading UDP packets, and they were slowing them down. But again, I think if you've paid more for the software-defined radio, so it could get things, like not necessarily receive at a higher frequency, but deal with a higher volume of packets to be able to transcribe stuff into human-readable speech or human-readable text. Or if you had already infected the machine with something that, did slow down the UDP packets, which, being UDP, isn't going to care all that much because, they'll get there or not. It doesn't matter. So yeah, it's a little bit scary for, being able to monitor certain UDP communications. It's unlikely to be used in many things, but just the fact that you can bloody well do it on cheaper cable that, obviously is an outdoor rated or properly expensively shielded, it's a little bit scary because you figure you got something air gapped and they're actually catching the communication between the two air gap machines.
And that was like 12 to 15 freedom units, by the way, not meters.
Oh, yeah.
I guess we should all just go optical.
Yeah, there's no way to intercept and look at pulses of light.
Not without breaking it.
As far as you know.
Yeah. I mean, you can, but it involves some equipment and resplicing, and yeah.
I did a headset review. It was a bit of a mixed bag.
Okay, that was great, thanks.
It was the EPOS H3 hybrid gaming headset. It's called hybrid because you can connect it with USB, with 3.5 millimeter analog, like the last H3 that I reviewed, or with Bluetooth, which is, of course, the big feature of this one because everybody loves Bluetooth. And I will just skip to... the design is actually... here's the one interesting point of the design that differentiates it from other gaming headsets that I've looked at. The whole thing is magnetically attached to the ear cup, and you can just pull it off the left ear cup and have no mic. There's actually a built-in mic on the headset, so you have like a smaller mic. And it comes with a cap to cover the unsightly hole left behind. There's a little plastic cap here. So I tested it in various different ways, and it sounded best wired. It sounded okay as a Bluetooth headset. I was hearing a little distortion when I turned the volume up very high. So it seems like the onboard amplifier in this isn't the strongest. And unfortunately, even the analog connection requires it because the analog connection is converted to digital, amplified, and then I would say if you listen at moderate volume levels, like 50% or lower, this sounded great and it had very good bass and control of the bass. But if you turn it up very loud at all, you start hearing distortion. It was at its worst from the 3.5 millimeter input. It got better with a wired connection, but or the digital wired connection. It was. I did not find it to be an acceptable experience with 3.5 millimeter audio at all. And it's $179. You have to want Bluetooth plus USB wired to really want this, I think, compared to even other EPOS headsets, like the GSP 370, which does use a dongle. A lot of the ones that I've heard that are better do use a dongle. So if you cannot embrace the dongle lifestyle, if you have to have Bluetooth, then perhaps you would be interested in this, unless you listen at high volume levels, in which case you might not. Okay. Picks of the week. Who's got the Switch? Is this you, John?
I got the MikroTik
Okay.
from Lithuania. These guys are like challenging Cisco at a quarter of the price. I mean, their OS is not fantastic, but it's workable, and they've got a GUI that you can do, or they've got a more traditional type programming type language on it. It comes out in the box as a layer 2 gigabit, 10 gigabit switch, 12 ports, 4 of them combo ports. So you could have copper and fiber. The thing is a little loud. It could do layer 3 type things if you want it to, but that takes some of the overhead. That increases the overhead because the controller in there is not the most robust. But I tell you, when you just have it in layer 2 and you're running 10G, multiple servers, and even in your house. It's not horribly loud. You put that in the closet, and you can attach all your 10G and your 5G and your 2.5 gigabit Ethernet to it, and it just works, and it works fantastically. And they update them often, and yeah, we've been ecstatic at this at work. 12 port, $590. 10 gig. I mean, it's full 10 gig across. It's not, hey, we've got 8 1G ports and 2 10. No, it's all 12 are 10G, and it's such a nicely well built little switch, and again, it can run a little loud under heavy load, but if it's just sitting there, it's not very loud at all. And yeah, the performance is good. It's a great little product for the price. If you're setting up a backbone for your home or for your basic and work, yeah, you can't beat it. It's amazing.
What if you could put some like Noctua fans in there, or
Probably
have holes in the top, put giant heat sinks on it?
Yeah, you could.
I have the desktop version of this. It's like a 6-port, 5-port one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm familiar with their OS. It actually works pretty good, but it does run hot when you've got transceivers in the SPF Plus ports. I guess you don't call them transceivers anymore, but it does run pretty hot with those in there.
That's just 10G. You know, that's just 10 GBE now.
Yeah,
I tend to agree.
All hot.
My QNAP native 10G switch does not get quite as hot. Whatever. Yeah,
I'm not sure what is happening with your voice. Let's move to the next pick, Jeremy.
UWP is dead.
Long live UWP.
Huzzah.
Yes, finally. That was sort of my pick. But if you are Canadian and you are quick, apparently Mike's Computer Shop has some cards in the pipeline. So if you go there and you buy and put down your money, you are guaranteed to get this in the not too distant future. And at $1,500, it is Canadian. That is essentially MSRP for Canadian for a 1080 Ti. And still cheaper than the US by significant amounts. If that's a little rich for your blood, he's got I think it was a 1060, or 1060, a 3060 as well. And possibly even a 3070. So it's damn well the only way you're going to get one of these things at anywhere close to MSRP. So if you're in Canada and you've got the money to do it now, I would kind of suggest it. And they've got you also get a 20% Noctua gift card off your next purchase for the next hopefully year, not this calendar year, but good for a year. Because I don't know that you'll necessarily get it for Christmas, but you will definitely have one coming some point.
Would you be...
And sticking, well, they just opened up the border, so, well, that's easier now.
Oh, okay, yeah. Just get that enhanced passport, or wait, I think in Michigan I have to have an enhanced ID or a passport to get over the border.
We do require passports now, yeah, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Still technically the world's longest undefended border, but it now needs a passport. Brett, what you got?
All right.
What I've got, this reminded me of Josh's days of racing. Maybe he'll come back someday, but this is
One day.
a very affordable way to get into sim racing from a chair perspective. Woot is offering this Playseat Evolution gaming chair for $255. Normally this is about $320, so this is a very reasonable, about $70 off or so. And the platform and holders are very sturdy. The seat is definitely one of those bolstered seats. So if you're into the sim racing scene and are looking for $255 is really affordable for a full metal holder platform for the pedals and a real, relatively real, racing seat with a real aluminum platform underneath it. It's just downright affordable if you're a sim racing fan. because these sorts of things can cost double or triple. And even this one regularly priced, take a look on Amazon, it's in the lower 300s. So $255 off of Woot right now using the link that will be someday in the notes. Just go look at it on Woot if you can't find it. Here, go get one if you're into it.
You know, the one thing that I've never liked about those is the pole in the middle in between your legs.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing 3-pedal. You're often banging your knees on that thing. So pay attention to what kind of pedals you got and how you're going to use it. It should be fine for most people. But just something to be aware of. Knocking knees is not fun. Not those,
Indeed,
at least.
totally true. If you're going to be clutching, then you might want to consider it.
Yeah.
My Momo pedal set does not have a clutch pedal, so I guess I'm a pretender.
You're good. You're fine.
All right.
It's not real sim racing then, is it, Brett?
Nah, it's sim. It's a simulation of sim racing.
Sim-esque.
Yeah.
Sim light.
It's a sim of sim racing.
It's like there's Sim City and then there's The Sims, and you're on like the Sims side of sim racing, not the Sim City side. Okay, my pick this week it's not an actual pick. It's just something I want. I don't have one of these. Of all the hardware I have access to, I don't have this specific generation of Pentium 4 on hand. But I wish I did, because Notebook Check had an interesting article this morning. Or not this morning, it was a couple mornings ago. Intel Pentium 4 processors running Windows 11. Now, this is how I would embrace Windows 11. Just as an FU to Microsoft for their ridiculous hardware requirements for this. And there's a loophole, basically.
NetBurst has always been a loophole.
Yeah. So you can get a Pentium 4 661 and install Windows 11 on it. Because apparently it's hyper-threaded and it's got a 3.6 gigahertz boost clock. And some users out there apparently have gotten Windows 11 running on it. And supposedly Windows Update still works too. I would like to test this myself if I had the hardware, but it's pretty funny. I'm sure I have some NetBurst somewhere. Maybe on an old laptop.
I don't know when I'm even going to go to Windows 11. It's disappointing.
Why would you right now?
I'm not.
Right.
I'm seeing another Vista here.
Oh, that's harsh right now. Are you sure?
Why?
Hey, I didn't call it ME.
No. Windows ME.
I didn't go that far.
Wow, that's really
I was being nice.
That's harsh.
I think on this note, we will end the show for this week. We'll be back next week. I have a feeling we'll have more to talk about in the realm of PC hardware. But until then, thanks for listening and or watching. I have nothing else to say.
Good night.
Goodbye.